Hey guys, so today I'm going to teach you about proper hand position on the clarinet. It's a really important aspect of playing for us because it can affect our slow technique as well as our fast technique in music, and ultimately can mean the difference between, for example, being able to play the Mozart concerto at tempo, which is quarter note equals 120, or having to play it a lot slower because we don't have the technique to back up the fast runs in the piece. To start with, your fingers should always be curved over the keys. However, they should always be really relaxed. So it should never feel like you're holding a ball and your fingers are on the keys, although it should also never feel like they're flattening out, because that can lead to a lot of problems when you're trying to play fast music. So always remember to keep the fleshy parts of your fingertips, where your fingerprints are, right over the keyholes, and make sure your wrist and your arm leading up to your elbow is relaxed. In both hands, it should feel as though your fingers, although they're curved over the keys, are spaced well apart from each other. Oftentimes, we have a problem where our pinkies, because they're kind of straight away from the rest of the fingers, have a tendency to creep up towards the other fingers and towards those keys. However, that becomes an instant problem when we actually need the pinkies for all these keys down here and on the side. And the same can be applied to the thumb. When you're looking at your left hand, your thumb should be placed so that it can reach the octave key. However, you should never feel like you actually have to make an extreme effort to flick the octave key. It should be a very slight movement with the tip of your thumb, so make sure that your thumb is covering the thumb hole properly. One of the main problems that we often have as clarinet players is the weight distribution of our clarinet. A lot of times we find ourselves resting this key on the side right here against our index finger on the right hand. This can become a serious issue later, so always be very aware when you're practicing that when this finger is not doing anything, you're not letting that key rest against that finger. Another common issue that we share with other wind players is when our fingers fly above the keys when we're playing fast technique in music. And one way we can work on that is by practicing in front of a mirror and watching our fingers closely to keep them hovering over the keys. And that's something I'll talk about in the next segment. An important exercise that we can do to practice our finger technique, making sure our fingers are curved and making sure our wrists are straight and our fingers aren't bent in any weird way, is practicing in front of a mirror. So when doing this, make sure that you're practicing something that doesn't require really any thought at all. So practice a scale you're really familiar with, practice something you've played many times before, and make sure that while you're doing this, although you're working on something and playing it correctly, you're focusing solely on your fingers and what your fingers are doing as you're playing it. Another exercise that we can do for practicing our technique is to let our bell rest between our knees when we're practicing. This may be kind of an uncomfortable concept for many people because, of course, when we're taught to first play the instrument, we're taught to hold it with our thumb, which we would traditionally. However, in this case, it's a good practice because it frees your hands of the burden of holding the instrument. And by doing that, we can focus on relaxing our fingers and practicing really good technique and keeping our fingers curved and not tensing up our wrists or our knuckles over the keys. It's a really good technique and it's very effective.